So in the last video, I showed how to take lines and quadratics and graphically multiply them. I'm going to continue that in this video. Just a couple of quick examples for some of the things that could happen with quadratics and lines. So in problem number 5 here, this example, when we look at f of x, right, f of x is just a normal line. G of x, though, has a vertex that's directly on the x-axis, which means it's only going to have one x-intercept. So that's going to cause a little bit of a difference when we do our problem. So we're still going to start by marking our x-intercepts here. So I'm going to go ahead and find the x-intercept for f of x. So that's this point right here. And then I'm going to come over here and mark this vertex, which is also the x-intercept for that graph. All right, so we only have two x-intercepts here. So I'm still going to do the same thing in terms of breaking up my graph, little dotted lines here. So let's break up the graph here and here. Let's see what's going on. Okay, so in this section of our graph, far, far left, f of x is below the x-axis, so it's negative. G of x is way up here, it's positive. So negative times a positive is a negative. All right, so I'm going to just mark that little section negative. Next little section right here, we've got positive for the line, and we have positive for the g of x function. So this is positive. All right, positive times positive is still a positive. Come over here on the right side of the whole graph. The red line is above the x-axis, it's positive. Blue curve is above the x-axis, it's also positive, so it is positive. So we're going to start at negative. We are going to come up through this x-intercept, but then this whole section of the curve has to be positive, but I still need to touch this x-intercept. So you want to be very, very careful when you do this analysis that you make sure you're not always, it doesn't always alternate. And so that's where you want to be careful. So let's see, we're going to come up from negative. I'm going to go through the x-intercept. Now, this next section, I need to stay positive, but I also need to touch that x-intercept. So it's going to do something like this. And then when I touch that x-intercept, I need to bounce basically, whoa, that was horrible. Hold on a second. I need to bounce back up. All right, basically, think about like bouncing a ball off of a floor, right? It doesn't go below the floor, it just bounces to the floor and then comes back up. All right, so if we can analyze this, we've got negative, positive, positive over here, and we went through the two x-intercepts. So quick label, this is m of x. That is a horrible x. Let's try that again. There's m of x. Okay. So that's what happens when your quadratic function only touches the x-axis once. You just end up with two x-intercepts, which is okay. All right. By the way, this curve, even though it only has two x-intercepts, it's still a form of a cubic function. All right. All right. And problem number 6 here, we've got another kind of specialty case. We have a quadratic here, right, a parabola that goes through the x-axis twice, but then f of x here, it's kind of weird, but it actually has the exact same x-intercept as one of the two roots of the parabola. So let's see what that does. All right, so zoom in, I am going to mark my x-intercepts. So mark the x-intercept, mark the other x-intercept, and I'm still going to do that same analysis. Now, for me, I'm a visual person. I really like seeing those little dotted lines to make sure I don't miss one of my intervals. All right, so if I go far left here, so blue curve below the x-axis, red line below the x-axis, we've got negative times negative. Well, that actually ends up being a positive. Okay, so our product is actually going to be up here somewhere when we sketch it in. Okay, next little section right here, we've got a negative red line times a positive blue curve. So a negative times a positive is a negative. And last little section over here in red, we've got a negative blue curve and a positive red line. well, that would be negative as well. So we want to be careful again, right? It's not alternating. So we're going to start positive. We're going to drop down into the negative section, and then we need to basically stay in the negative section. Okay? So this is our m of x curve. And that is another example of a cubic function, right? An x to the third function. All right, I hope this has helped clarify some of the little bit more specialty cases in terms of these graphical functions.